Right now in Iraq, the story isn't about a single headline or one dramatic announcement. It's about convergence. It's about timing, sequencing, and the quiet alignment of economic layers that normally move at different speeds. When those layers begin accelerating together, experienced observers take notice. Here on Iraqi Dinar, we don't chase excitement. We examine structure. And what's unfolding is structural. Start with timing. The early months of 2026 carry strategic importance inside Iraq. Periods surrounding Ramadan have historically served as windows where governments introduce policy adjustments, regulatory changes, or economic messaging. Not because of symbolism alone, but because national focus intensifies. Public attention consolidates. Administrative cycles reset. Pre-Ramadan preparation and post-Ramadan implementation often form a corridor where groundwork is laid quietly before broader execution. Investors watching February and March are not watching a holiday. They are watching a policy window. But while calendar discussions generate attention, something more measurable is developing underneath. Iraq's Ministry of Industry and Minerals reportedly approved nearly 900 industrial licenses in 2025 across sectors like food processing, construction materials, chemicals, engineering industries, textiles, and metals. That level of licensing is not cosmetic. It represents capacity expansion. It signals a government pushing beyond oil dependency toward domestic production strength. An economy that is stagnant does not authorize that many industrial projects in a single year. An economy preparing for expansion does. Now connect that to trade mechanics. Iraq is simultaneously reviewing tariff structures tied to banking modernization and foreign currency settlement systems. Tariffs are not just about import protection, they regulate trade flows. Trade flows require payment systems. Payment systems require a functional, internationally compatible banking framework. And efficient exports require a currency that can interact with global markets. You can build factories with a domestically circulating currency. You cannot integrate smoothly into international trade without broader convertibility. That is the pressure point. For years, Iraq has operated under a managed exchange regime. The dinar functions domestically, but it is not freely traded across global forex markets in the same way as major currencies. This creates a ceiling. Internal growth can occur. Full international capital integration remains limited. Without broader tradability, foreign investors face friction. International banks operate cautiously. Settlement systems rely heavily on dollar mediation. That bottleneck is structural, not emotional. Now ask a practical question. If Iraq had no intention of gradually modernizing its currency architecture, why accelerate industrial diversification? Why tighten banking compliance? Why restructure tariff frameworks? Infrastructure expansion without monetary alignment eventually creates inefficiencies. Trade increases, but settlement lags. Capital wants entry, but regulatory friction slows it. Over time, maintaining restriction becomes more costly than reforming it. This does not mean immediate revaluation. It means structural alignment is progressing. Another layer involves political consolidation. Stability is not optional in currency transitions. Monetary shifts require confidence. Reports that Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani relinquished his parliamentary seat were interpreted by some as instability. Constitutionally, however, executive authority and legislative membership cannot overlap indefinitely. Consolidation clarifies authority. Markets prefer clarity over fragmentation. Strong institutions reduce sovereign risk perception, and sovereign risk directly influences currency credibility. Geopolitics adds complexity. Iraq sits in a sensitive regional position, balancing relationships with the United States and neighboring powers such as Iran. The dollar flows into Iraq have faced scrutiny due to concerns about sanctions evasion and illicit transfers. That scrutiny has pressured Iraq's central bank to strengthen oversight, digitize transactions, and tighten foreign currency auctions. Domestically, those measures created friction. Internationally, they signaled compliance intent. Compliance is a prerequisite for integration. A currency does not become globally accepted simply by changing its rate. It must demonstrate transparency, liquidity mechanisms, and regulatory integrity. International banks evaluate anti-money laundering enforcement, digital tracking systems, and fiscal discipline before engaging freely with a currency. Iraq's recent reforms in monitoring dollar auctions and modernizing payment rails suggest preparation, not passivity. There is also discussion within banking circles about hypothetical exchange scenarios, modeling rate adjustments, and even appointment preparation frameworks. It is critical to separate rehearsal from activation. Banks routinely prepare contingency systems months in advance. However, institutions rarely allocate resources toward modeling scenarios with zero probability. Preparation does not equal confirmation, but it does indicate perceived possibility. Still, currency reform is not a switch. It is sequencing. First comes internal stabilization, controlling illicit dollar leakage, strengthening central bank authority, reinforcing political cohesion. Second comes productive expansion, factories, engineering capacity, domestic supply chains. Third comes banking modernization, digital infrastructure, compliance alignment, cross-border transaction monitoring. Fourth comes trade recalibration, tariff restructuring and import-export balance adjustments. Only after these foundations are reasonably aligned can broader exchange flexibility be introduced without destabilizing inflation or triggering speculative exploitation. Most impatience arises from wanting the final stage before earlier stages are complete. Currencies derive strength from utility, not speculation. If Iraq reduces import dependency through domestic production, demand for foreign currency decreases internally. If it increases diversified exports, that future trade settlement demand grows. Broader revenue streams stabilize fiscal planning. Stable fiscal policy supports monetary confidence. That is how resilience forms. It is also important to recognize that global integration increases exposure. A more tradable dinar would not only attract capital inflows, it would also expose Iraq to global volatility, oil price swings, and external macro shocks. The current managed structure insulates some risk. Greater openness brings opportunity and vulnerability simultaneously. Policymakers must judge readiness carefully. Zoom out to the global environment. Currency realignments are occurring across emerging markets. Regional settlement systems are being explored. Commodity-linked frameworks are discussed. While the US dollar remains dominant, multi-polar financial dialogues are expanding. Iraq's geographic and energy position places it at a crossroads. Modernization could elevate its regional economic influence. Delay could leave it semi-isolated, while others integrate faster. So what should disciplined observers watch? Not rumors. Implementation. Are industrial licenses translating into operational factories? Are tariff adjustments formally enacted? Is the Central Bank of Iraq expanding transparency reports? Are international banking partnerships measurably increasing? Are illicit dollar outflows declining? Is political leadership consolidating rather than fragmenting? When foundational indicators align across fiscal discipline, banking integrity, and political stability, the monetary reform shifts from speculative to logical. Logical moves in macroeconomics often occur quietly. By the time headlines appear, groundwork has already been laid. Right now, Iraq is not static. It is building. It is tightening compliance. It is expanding production. It is recalibrating trade tools. Whether that culminates in phased currency flexibility or a longer gradual integration remains uncertain. But the trajectory is no longer flat, and that changes the conversation. Here on Iraqi Dinar, we remain analytical. We separate noise from structural movement. We focus on policy density, not prediction dates. Because in currency markets, transformation rarely announces itself loudly in advance. It unfolds through alignment. And when alignment reaches critical mass, adjustment becomes not dramatic, but inevitable.